We are only 21 days out from the 2024 presidential election. Yes, it is upon us. This is a very hotly contested, a very closely contested presidential election. Donald J. Trump, the former 45th president of the United States, taking on the current vice president, Kamala Harris. Now, since our last video, there has been a major shift in the polls, and we're going to go right to that. I'm going to show you right now. Here it is. Remember yesterday, Trump was trailing in Michigan. Well, look at this now. In the most current polls, and this is a series of 8 polls, very credible, the former president is now up a half a percentage point. He has also picked up another couple of tenths of a point here in Nevada. He's leading in Arizona. He's leading in Georgia. He's also leading in Pennsylvania. That's incredible. So he has made some serious headway in this polling. He has now taken the lead. There's only one of the 7 swing states that he is not leading at the moment. That is Wisconsin. We're going to look at that in just a moment. He's only a couple tenths of a point behind in that poll. But as we go back to our Electoral College map, let's do what we usually do. We're going to go to November 5th, 2024. We're going to start with Maine. Now, as you know, Maine and Nebraska, they distribute their Electoral College votes a little bit differently than the other 48 states. The other 48 states, the majority delegate and distribute their Electoral College votes based on the popular vote of that state. So, example, whoever wins the popular vote in the state of Michigan gets those 15 Electoral College votes. Whoever wins down here in Texas, the popular vote gets those 40 Electoral College votes, but not in Maine. Maine and Nebraska do a little bit differently. They allocate a small percentage of their Electoral College votes to the state's popular vote winner, and then those states have a couple of districts that allow a candidate to earn a Electoral College vote. But Maine, the popular vote is going to definitely go to Vice President Harris. The first district will also go to her. But the second district, it's typically carved out in Portsmouth, and places like that. It's typically conservative. Trump was not polling well there earlier in the year, but now his base has come back to him, and he's got a couple of percentage points lead. Republican hasn't lost that district in quite some time, so he should be able to hold his base there and take one of Maine's 4 Electoral College votes. Let's stay in the East Coast, home to Bernie Sanders, the most liberal state in the United States of America. Vermont is going blue. New Hampshire will also go blue. Massachusetts will go blue by a very large margin. Get up here into Rhode Island and Connecticut. It's going to be a blue wave up here in the East Coast for Vice President Harris. New Jersey will go blue, but not by much. New Jersey, very close when it was when it was Biden and Trump. There were some polls that had this as a tie. A couple other polls, Democratic polling companies, had Biden only up by 3. Since Biden pulled out on July 21st, the base became very excited, very motivated, and they gravitated towards Vice President Harris, but not in the overwhelming numbers that we expected that would take place. She's only up by about 8 to 10 points. If she does not win this by double digits, really 12 to 14 points, it could tell a little bit on what's going to happen in some of these tighter races in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina. She has to hold this double-digit base. We're going to go to New York. That is definitely going to be a win for Vice President Harris. But here again, New York is an interesting story. You go back to every Democratic presidential candidate that has won the presidency or won New York, they win this state by 25 to 27 percentage points. Biden did the same thing. The most current polls have Vice President Harris only up by about 12 to 14 points. She's not doing very well in New York. That's just, it's really hard to fathom that she is only polling at half of what the former Democratic candidates have polled when they even won those states. So she's not doing well. Again, New York and New Jersey, she needs to be in the 20% range in New York. She needs to be in that 14% range in New Jersey. If she's not, it could be a fortune telling moment and could really bleed into Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, some of these other tight states. That's kind of where we stand right there. Um, let's go over here to Trump country a little bit. Ohio's going to go for Trump, 8 to 10 points. That just he won that in 2016. He was actually behind Hillary Clinton on election day, but he pulled out Ohio in 2016, and he really solidified those numbers in 2020. Trump's not going to lose Ohio by less than 8 points. Very well could go double digit. Indiana is definitely a red state. That's a gimme for Trump, as well as Kentucky, Tennessee, excuse me for that, Tennessee, West Virginia. That will go 65 points or better for the former President Trump. He'll collect those 4 electoral college votes, but there's something even bigger of note taking place in West Virginia. The United States Senate is up for grabs in this election. The Democrats are extraordinarily concerned that they are going to lose control of the Senate, and West Virginia is one of the biggest reasons why. Joe Manchin, a very popular Democrat senator, he's respected on both sides of the aisle. He has really moved his base away from the Democratic Party over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, he has not supported really any of Biden's proposals, plans, and agenda over the last couple of years, and he's just found himself not in sync with the Democrat Party. He is retiring. And former Republican governor, a very popular governor, Jim Justice, is now the Republican nominee. He has such a large lead in this state. Some feel he could win it 70-30, probably more like about 62-38 is what's going to play out here, 65-35. But there's not even any polls taken in the state because he's just got such a massive lead. No one's investing any money to see where that poll is leaning or not leaning. So this is going to be a 100% guaranteed flip for the Republican Party. They will flip West Virginia Senate seat that will go red. It'll be a steal from the Democrats. South Carolina is going to be very red. That is Trump country. That's another 60 plus percentage points victory for the former president. We're going to jump over here to Virginia. Virginia is a very interesting story as well. When Biden was in the race, this state was polling a tie in one poll and a 3 to 4 point lead for Biden in another. That's insane. The Democrats pretty much own Virginia because you have this large group in Fairfax County. There's thousands upon thousands of government employees in that county. And we've seen a couple of elections where the Republicans looked like they were going to maybe pull out a surprise. But once Fairfax County here starts coming in, it's an 85-15 sway for the Democrats. And then it just kind of dashes all the hopes of the Republican candidate. And that's been the case not just in presidential elections recently, but in House races and in Senate races. So Virginia will go for Vice President Harris, but it could be as close as 5 or 6%. Let's see how that plays out. She needs to really be in that 8 to 10% range to, kind of see where her base is going up in the other part of the country here. Maryland, very blue. District of Columbia is going to be solid blue. Excuse me, I just gave that away there. And so this is all kind of projected and predicted. There may be a surprise or two, but it's only going to be in the margin of her victory, how big it is or how small it is. North Carolina, we're going to touch base on that. That's going to be a very close call, but as the polls are closing on the East Coast, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, this is going to be too close to call. Illinois, that will go to the vice president. Here's another interesting story here, though. She is not polling anywhere close to Joe Biden's margin of victory in 2020. She's not polling anywhere close to 2016, even when Hillary Clinton lost that state. Kamala Harris's numbers are not even close to 2016 and 2020. She's way off what Barack Obama won his margin of victories in Illinois in the two terms that former President Barack Obama won. She's struggling here. She's going to have a difficult time with the black male vote in Illinois. The black male vote is definitely on these national polls. We saw Pew Research come out here recently. We saw NPR run a story. Some of the national media sources picked it up. She is having a difficult time. Up to 1/4 of the black male registered voters are leaning or in the Trump camp. And this is going to be a huge story on this night. She will win Illinois. But if she does not win Illinois by 15, 16, 17% or higher, this could be a very long night. It could foretell what's going on in Wisconsin in communities like Milwaukee, Detroit, Flint, Pennsylvania. You get Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. If the black male registered voters in that 24 to 45 age group are polling and voting like the polls suggest across the country, it's going to be a tough hill for her to climb. But we'll see how this plays out. Iowa, as Trump country. Missouri's 10 electoral college votes will go to Donald Trump, as will Arkansas, which has a very unusual poll closing time of 8:30. They cut the hour in half, so they close at 8:30 that evening. That will be called very quickly. Louisiana as well. That's going to be 60 plus percentage points for former President Donald Trump, along with Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. It looked like it was going to be kind of considered a swing state. It still is, but Trump is really holding his ground there. There's a lot of money going into that campaign. The Democratic National Committee has had Bill Clinton down there. They've had Obama down there. Vice President Harris has been there numerous times. She's just having a hard time down there. Her message is not resonating enough to overpower the former president. And Georgia is going to go red. It's going to go red. It'll be tight, but it's going to go red. I believe that he will win this state by a little less than 100,000 votes, but it's not going to be a 10 or 15,000 vote margin. It'll be somewhere between 60 and 110,000 votes for the former president of the United States. Let's jump down here to Florida. 2016, Florida was going to be the state that carried Hillary Clinton to the presidency. She was going to shatter the glass ceiling, and Florida was going to lead the way. It didn't quite work out that way, did it? Donald Trump stole Florida from Hillary Clinton in 2016, and he padded that lead in a victory in that state over Joe Biden in 2020. He's even polling by larger margins in 2024. Florida is very safe. Red. About this time of that evening, Trump should have about a 156 to 115 lead. As the polls begin to close in the Midwest, we'll touch base on that here in just a moment. But let's go out to the West Coast. Let's give you the gimmies. Washington, that's very blue, very, very liberal state. Oregon will go blue, but not by much. Oregon has a very unique voting process there. Every ballot is cast by mail. And so they begin counting those ballots early in the morning on election day, and they start releasing those results about the time that Washington and California and Nevada and them close their polls. This is going to be a blue state for Vice President Harris, but she's only polling up about 5%. Again, that is kind of crazy because she should be winning Oregon by very close to the same margins as she is in Washington. It's not going to be that way. She'll win this state by about 5 or 6 percentage points. Any less than that, it is a telltale sign how the rest of the country may be voting. We'll see, though. We'll see. Very interesting. California, very blue. California is one of the most liberal states, probably the second most liberal state outside of New Hampshire, but that's going to go to Vice President Harris. Alaska will be Trump country, and Hawaii will be Harris country by a large margin, 65 percentage points. Let's go back into go back out west again. Montana will, 4 electoral college votes will go to former President Donald J. Trump. Here again, the presidency is secured. Trump's got that state secured. Excuse me, I used the wrong term, not the presidency, but Trump has that state secured. He will win that state by a very sweeping margin. What's playing out in Montana, though, is the Senate seat. It's a huge race. Jon Tester, a very respected, a very popular Democrat senator in a very red state, has done very well. What's unique about this is he was doing fairly well, maintaining a small lead, but a lead nonetheless, while Biden was in the race. After July 21st, kind of opposite of what you've seen around the rest of the country, when Kamala Harris became the nominee, the polls flipped. Tim Sheehy, who was running against Jon Tester, the incumbent, surged to the lead. Like, he surged. He went from down 3 to 5 points to up 6 to 8, and he has not relinquished that. Even with a little controversy taking place out there, he has a commanding lead over Tester. The Montana Senate seat is going to flip red. The Republicans will now have flipped, guaranteed, there's no way around it, West Virginia and Montana. This will give the Republicans control of the Senate. That is a 100% guaranteed. Las Vegas has this etched in stone. What is going to be the margin? We won't know until the tight race in Michigan comes through. There's a tight race in Pennsylvania as well, closer than what the Democrats are wanting. And you even have a couple of the Senate seats that the Democrats should easily hold. These things are going to be very tight. The Ohio race between Sherrod Brown, the incumbent Democrat, against Moreno. That's within a couple of percentage points. But Montana's going to put the Republicans in control of the Senate. Wyoming will go red. North Dakota red. South Dakota. These are all 60-plus point victories for the former 45th President of the United States. Now Nebraska, we want to touch base on this. Donald Trump will win the popular vote in Nebraska, thus carrying those 2 electoral college votes. District 1 will also go to former President Trump. District 2 is an Omaha district that's been carved out for the Democrats. Kamala Harris is holding that district very strong. She'll win that 1 electoral college vote in Nebraska. District 2 and then District 3 will stay with the former president. Kansas will be red. Oklahoma will be red. And then you have the great state of Texas. And if you live in Texas, you refer it to as the United States of Texas. In 2016, the Democrats were polling up 3 to 4 points. Hillary Clinton was actually polling up 3 to 4 points. Some polls are up 5. They just knew they were going to turn Texas blue in 2016. And in the early part of the evening, as Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and Austin numbers came in, it looked like it could go that way. I believe at one point Hillary Clinton was up about 360-some thousand votes. But as the night progressed, you get this rural area. This is all Texas farmland. They call this up here the Llano Estacado. Lubbock, Amarillo. When these votes come trickling in, Trump ended up having a margin of victory that just was not going to be covered by Clinton. Trump won Texas, and in 2020, he dashed the Democrats' hopes again by a larger margin of victory. This year, he's polling 7-8%. That is going to be a red state. As the Midwest comes into play, Trump is up 229 to 194. Staying out into the West, Midwest, Colorado, moving farther to the left every election cycle. That is Harris country. She will secure that. New Mexico's 5 electoral college votes will go to the vice president. But a very interesting scene playing out in New Mexico. The Hispanic population It's not a give me vote for the vice president anymore. The immigration issue is huge among the Hispanic, Latino culture there. Those that went through the immigration process the correct way. There's some resentment with this open border policy that's bleeding into California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And this state is only pulling about 5 to 6 points for the vice president. She should have been in the 8 to 10 point range, but the Hispanic vote will keep her from securing a large margin of victory here. She will win it, but by about 5%, 4 to 6%. Not where she needs to be, not where she wants to be. Idaho, red. Utah, very, very red. We're going to focus on these are 2 of the 7 swing states. Arizona. Arizona has stayed with Trump throughout this whole process. Now, he won it in 2016, lost by a narrow margin in 2020, less than 10,000 votes. He has not been behind in a single poll since the primaries. He has solidified his lead. Trump will hold Arizona. Let's go to Nevada. Remember, we looked at the poll earlier. Harris has had a fairly good lead here over the last several weeks. Trump has not been able to make any headway against the vice president. We look over here. Let's go all the way back to the first part of September. She's had a steady lead, a little less than a half a point. They get very close, and then it breaks up to about a point, point and a half, and then here, she was able to get some going. You know, she got some mojo going, and then all of a sudden, around the first week of October, she just fell off a cliff. She fell off a cliff, and what's happening is she's just not resonating with the Nevada voter, with the Arizona voter. It's probably because she just really doesn't do a lot of interviews. A lot of her conversations are very scripted, kind of cue card kind of thing. She just isn't giving the answers that the voters are looking for, whereas Trump's message hasn't changed. He's very steadfast in his message, whether you like it or not. That you know, as a voter, you know, as an observer, what you get from Donald J. Trump. Harris is kind of all over the place, and she's kind of a different candidate on a daily basis. And I think this is starting to cause her some problems. Now, both candidates have dipped a little bit in their support here, but they're dipping together, and it does not help the vice president. So when we go back to Nevada, Trump caught her, and it's going to be very hard for her to make up that ground. Nevada will go red. Trump's at 256 to 209. Now, we're going to cover some different scenarios here, so stick with me here, okay? I want you to just listen to what we're discussing here, because we're going to dive into some of these numbers. It's very important. Minnesota, that's going to go to the vice president. Her running mate, Tim Walz, is a governor here, is a very popular governor here. Those 10 electoral college votes will go to Vice President Harris. But here again, there's something playing out here. She doesn't have this 10 to 12% lead that she should have. It's just not an overwhelming lead. And some polls now have this at less than 5%. The average polling through this morning, 21 days out, has her up about 4.8%. About 4.8%. She's going to win, but she really needs to be up 8-10 points. That's a telltale sign when she's doing that poorly. It could bleed into Wisconsin. It's going to bleed into Michigan. It could bleed into Pennsylvania. So we have to kind of see what happens over the next couple of weeks. There are no more debates, but you have the Democratic Party has Obama out on the trail. They have Bill Clinton out on the trail. But there's some things that are playing out. And I'm going to go over 3 kind of breaking news stories that took place over the last 4 days, which could affect the outcome of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Obama was at basically a rally, town hall meeting over the last few days. And he really went after the black male voter. He was very critical, chastising the black male voters in the country, um, just calling them sellouts and just really getting after them with really out any rational or substance um, in his presentation. And he's just like, hey, you're not, you're black, you have to vote for a black candidate. Um, that was his message. And this has not resonated. Matter of fact, it's been taken as offensive to the black male voters. If you look at some of the polls that have come out since this event, black male voters 24 to 45 feel insulted, they feel attacked, and they may just take this out on Vice President Harris in the polls. Bill Clinton has been out on the campaign trail. Kind of had a moment of comedy here a couple of days ago. He was in a stop, and actually one of the uh, potential voters inside the establishment was in thought he was Joe Biden and acknowledged him as President Joe Biden. It was a little bit embarrassing. Your third big news event was the disastrous Vice President Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview. It was just a disaster. And now that we're getting some more information on how that whole interview was conducted and how the splicing and the dicing and the repasting and copying and pasting as that interview went, to sort of kind of save face for her, now that that is being exposed, it is really causing her some problems. It's causing her a lot of problems with the independent voters, those voters that are on the fence. Um, and it doesn't help her again with the black male voter 24 to 45. You need to hear what I'm saying here. The black male voter, maybe more than any election in history, is going to play such a huge role in this election. You look at Milwaukee, you look at Detroit, Flint, large populations of registered black male voters. Let's go to Pennsylvania and talk about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These are huge. Let's go down here to North Carolina and talk about Charlotte. The black male voter cannot be taken for granted. And they are going to vote in droves this election more than ever before. And at least 25% of them, the polls are showing, are voting for Donald J. Trump. Now, back to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is still holding its own for Vice President Harris. And then now you see she's sunk like Titanic in these polls here, but she's still holding on to a very narrow margin. Trump seems to be a little bit on the uptick here. She's in a steady free fall. But for just this moment, until we see that red line cross the blue, going to give Wisconsin to Kamala Harris at the moment. I firmly believe, looking at the data, she's on the bottom side here. She's going to be on the wrong side of history, possibly. I know a lot of people are going to comment on this. You're going to blow me up. Let's see what happens in a few days. For right now, she's still in the lead. So now we go to Michigan. We go to Pennsylvania. Let's take a look at Michigan. Look at the crossing of the line here. Harris up by 1.5 percentage points, almost cruising here a little bit, gaining some momentum. And then here again, like a lot of the polls are showing, something happened here in that Sunday, Monday, September 29th, September 30th, and then into the first week of October. Just a complete reversal. She is just free falling, and Trump is moving up. He's now got a percentage point lead. And this is not the only polling agency. Real Clear is very credible. They use multiple polls, not just two or three. They have multiple polling averages that they use to get to this number. He's in the lead. You go to Pennsylvania. Here again, it's been back and forth, back and forth. But Trump is maintaining a little slight lead here. Again, the black male voter in Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia could very well determine this race. And we're going to take one more look at another swing state. Trump won North Carolina in 2016. He won it again in 2020. He has secured his lead. Excuse me. He's padded it somewhat, but you see he's sort of stabilized here in the most recent couple of days. But look what has happened again. Here we got that first part of October. Vice President Harris is just in a free fall. Late to November 5th, 2024, early morning hours of 2020, November 6th, 2024. North Carolina is going to be called first for Trump. Michigan will be called second. Pennsylvania will be called third. You have the last one to fall into in the early morning hours, November 6th, 2024. Pennsylvania will be the last state to fall into the Trump column. Donald J. Trump, minimum 306 Electoral College votes to Kamala Harris's 232. It's a slight possibility he could pull something out, possibly in Virginia. I don't see it, but you know, there's some pundits that have him at 322, 320, but he is going to be the 47th president of the United States. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button because you'll be the first to get my new video releases. I have swing state video coming out tomorrow. I know you're going to enjoy it. Join me November 5th for a live stream. It's going to be an amazing evening.